You gonna say hi to the camera? I'm gonna try something different and make little recordings as I am watching one of my cones smoke and see how this goes. Sometimes it's easier for me to kind of share my thoughts and stuff where I'm not like in front of the camera, where I can just ramble on, and then if I wanted to edit it, I'm not just like looking at myself. One of the joys of making videos, right? And I guess before I get focused on the video, so little love on Jack doesn't hurt. So let me just kind of pull the camera away from the cuteness of Jack. He's such a love bug. So I want to talk about energy work, yeah? So kind of like the art and craft within witchcraft, that is energy work. A key element in witchcraft, one that all folk of the art have in common, is this connection to something called energy. If you're new to the craft and art, energy is the mood of a thing, right? So when I say mood, I'm talking about like the vibes, or it's kind of very basic where we say the energy in this room feels kind of funky or feels kind of weird. And sometimes it's because, say, an angry person has been in the room and everybody else in there is uncomfortable, and even after that person leaves, that like discomfort is still felt, right? So that's basically the energy of the room. In witchcraft, there's a big focus on understanding energy and learning how your energy interacts with the world around you. And so paying attention to the energy in a room is a good way to be able to put language to what energy is. So a practitioner of the craft and art of witchcraft is a weaver of energy, meaning they enfold themselves into that energy, into the art of understanding the cause and an effect of energy. And that study will always begin with the self, with understanding your own energy, understanding how you interact with a room that has the energy of someone that's been happy or the energy of someone that's been frustrated. And it all begins with recognizing how you feel in a room and how you interact with it. So if you walk into a room and you feel immediately uncomfortable, a lot of times our first reaction is like to get out of that room because there's something weird about it, rather than, if we're not in danger, pausing and questioning, why do I feel uncomfortable? Is there something in this room that is triggering me? Is there something in this room that simply makes me uncomfortable? Say there's like a picture that has eyes that feel like they follow you around if you're like in an old mansion or something. Or is there just something in here that feels kind of weird? You know, sometimes it can be like a haunted item, and sometimes it's just the fact that whoever was in the room before you just had some kind of a difficult thing going on, and that energy has stayed. So being able to recognize this energy, being able to like kind of look around the room, to read the room, to understand like what exactly is giving me this mood, this feeling, helps us understand and define energy in our own lives and the world around us. And so it's going to start with that self-awareness of understanding. And generally the best way to do that is small meditations throughout the day, every day. A meditation doesn't have to be something where you spend 10-20 minutes in silence or with music. It can literally just be a paused moment of focus, right? Meditation is just focus. And so when we feel an energy or we feel something in our everyday, if we pause and examine it and put focus to it, That's a like mini meditation, right? Okay, so let's like bring it home now into that meditation. So in your own space within your home, whether that's a room or you have an apartment or a house or whatever it is, that home is going to have a signature energy. And sometimes that's you, and sometimes it's you and, say, the history of the space, or if you share your home, whatever. And so there's different worlds almost of energy, right? That of the outside world and that within your home. I think we all kind of understand this concept. But what isn't actually talked about a lot in my own observations is the recognition of one's own light self and dark self. So as dark as a person can be is as light as a person can be. And what defines who we are is the choices that we make and how we live our life. So a crone or a wise one of their art and craft is less reactive and more observant. And for me, in my own practice, that's my goal, to be more observant of my energy and the world around me before I am reactive and doing anything, whether it's just a simple movement or language, or if it is something within the spellcraft. Because for every action that we do, there is a reaction, right? The folds of karma, which is, I believe, in my own research, is what brought that gathering of witches in Minneapolis in the 70s to create the Wiccan reed, or the fold law of what you send out comes back, right? A recognition of karma. And you don't have to be like a Wiccan to understand the wisdom behind that. It's kind of common sense. And this karma concept always makes me think of the Fool card in tarot. The card that shows us that always we have some aspect of ignorance. We are always at the beginning of a journey, of a learning, because in every topic, I believe we are always the student. There's always more to learn. We're never done being that student. Even in roles where we are the teacher, we still need to be open to being the student in the same moment, like holding that same duality, that same space. And I personally believe that the human that believes themselves to be a master of a topic has now failed themselves in experiencing wonder and playfulness and not knowing everything. But this is just like my own opinion on this. I kind of find this to be a behavior that flows into the conversation of ego. I don't exactly believe ego to be a negative thing. I think that it's a teacher. I think that we can go through stages, depending on the subject, of having blind arrogance, and other times where we can have freeing confidence. The kind of confidence that we don't care about being right or wrong. We don't care about knowing everything. We know what we know, and we're happy to share it, and we're just in this moment of bliss, right? I think that that can also be an aspect of positive ego. I think that in the same way that a person can be all ranges of light and dark, I think that ego, that concept of ego, is within that same sphere of understanding our own balance, of understanding the lessons that our own behavior can teach us about ourselves and how to grow in who we are and who we want to be. And so when I think about things in that perspective, the only way to move through that is to step into my own personal chaos, right? That space where there's no right or wrong, there's just myself. There's myself and the choices that I have to go forward or to not move forward. The space of learning, of self-awareness. Having a real look in the mirror of your own self, to see and to feel like all those words and emotions and ideology that sometimes we suppress and oppress and hide equal to the things that we celebrate about ourselves and our minds. There are things that we want to share and things that we don't share. And those are kind of the things that I'm talking about with what is the energy that is connected to those things in our lives, and how do they show themselves in our lives. That's part of that like self-awareness that's going to find itself showing up in our witchcraft, in the way that we approach a spell, in the way that we approach our everyday life, and how we adopt witchcraft into our daily activities. I think that this work is really key to the art and craft of knowing self. and to have that awareness that is needed to weave the magic in a most effective way. Also, with that being said, I have been taught by every elder, by every teacher in my life, that the goal is to learn and to live in one's own balance, and to always be honest with self on what that balance is, and that it can change every single day, right? We can approach life differently every single day, and there's beauty in that because it offers us experiences that are new every day. And that alone can give in to that, recognizing how I'm stubborn, or how I can maybe be rude to someone, or even how like I can bring wonder and joy and play into a day, especially if it's been like a difficult day. And that's that knowledge of understanding one's light side, one's dark side, and how it can be tricky work, but it's necessary, in the way that these behaviors and activities play into how we weave our magic. Because when we seek to work spellcraft or ceremonies or rituals, it is of our own unique art, right? Our own unique witchcraft. We need to have that focus, that intention, and the wisdom to craft whatever it is that we are seeking to weave, to understand the outcome goal, and if it turns out not to be what it is that we want, say in the middle of the process of achieving it, we change our mind. It's important that we know how to undo it if it is undoable. And all of this comes into that experience, the knowing the self, the allowing yourself to play with magic and divination in a way that is self-teaching, in a way that, of course, isn't going to harm anyone, but in a way that allows you to understand your own habits. Not all of us are going to want to do magic every single day, and some of us do. And finding out what your own personal groove is with that is really important for your own growth in magic and your own experiences, so that you're not forcing something, that it's very organic. Your self-work and your witchcraft becomes this companion aspect of your day, where you get excited at the end of the day to maybe go and do some prosperity magics, or to go out to a river and do some offerings because you've had like a really beautiful day. Like, these little things can become part of that celebration of your life, but also becomes part of your practice. It becomes part of your art and craft as a witch. I mean, we all know like the moon phases, the days of the week, the clock times, and all of these like components of witchcraft, but it becomes like that every day, and how it becomes part of your life that feeds into the energy of your own personal unique practice. So one example is, I think, that is kind of interesting, just kind of popped to my head, is kind of the logic behind the idea of the witching hour, right? That time in the middle of the night where there's no one else around, and there's these ideas and amazing photos out in the world of what that looks like, when really it's just like probably, for me, it's just me in sweatpants and a t-shirt out with a basket with candles and trying to light something when the wind's blowing around me or something. But, well, that's not every time, but it feels like it right now, but it's winter, so, most of my magic goes indoors right now because it's like negative 20 degrees outside. Anyways, but like, the concept of the witching hour and recognizing what it feels like when your community is at rest. So that community can be your household, or it can be like the neighborhood you live in. But the energy at night becomes soothed by slumber, right? Most people have stopped worrying about things, or stopped sharing things, or not excited about their activities that day. They have gone into their own slumber, their rest, their dream times. Now, as I was taught growing up, the witching hour, this interesting period where before midnight the good workings are done, and after midnight the potentially harmful workings can be done. And I always thought that was kind of strange. Like, why? Like, I read some places where they say like negative spirits come out after midnight, and I just came to realize that that's just really bullshit. What a great teacher taught me was that this teaching of the witching hour is less about actual witchcraft. It's more of a symbolic lesson of self-awareness. So A witch can weave their art any time of any day that they wish, right? I mean, we all follow certain components and certain ways that we do things, but there's no rule that it has to be during the witching hour at night. I mean, some of us had jobs and kids. We need to sleep. The symbolism of the witching hour is a show that the witch has wisdom of understanding energy weaving, and it's something among witch communities that I have found to be something that tells other people where you are in your space between knowledge and wisdom. The wisdom of energy weaving connected to act and deed, and what they do and do not do is connected to an understanding on how magic is going to affect their community of nature, animal, and humans. At least that's the way I was taught it. I know we each have our own groove with this, but being out in the middle of the night is going to feel completely different. Yes, we have the moon or whatever the season is that we're going to be connecting with, but doing it in the middle of the daytime is going to have a very significant difference. So instead of the moon, we have that solar energy, right? We're also going to have all of nature and the people that are near and far that are going to be giving energy into that day. Whereas night, it's less, right? So there's an easier ability to focus on what it is that you're doing, knowing that the keepers of night, the ancestors, the nature spirits, that they are the ones that you're sensing around you, whereas you're not feeling your neighbors watching you through windows or whatnot, unless you have some, some creepy neighbors, I don't know. But that's kind of that feel, that understanding of the witching hour. And that's where that comes from. It's not so much that you're doing things to hide it, it's doing it at that time of night, nearing midnight, because the energy at that time is more crisp. It's easier for the witch to have a focus on their intention, to have an awareness of what it is that they're doing, and to weave that magic with better clarity and better understanding. And that's what that's about. I guess unless you live like in a city where it's a little bit quieter and you need to go into a park, but you're still going to find that same thing. When you move away from the city, you move away from the hustle bustle of a street, even if it's like in New York in Central Park, you can still find a space where it's going to feel quieter, more still. And that's that energy that we're looking for the witching hour. This whole thing kind of is making me think about, in my lived experience, who are new to the craft, and how they want to jump right into the activity of like seasonal celebrations and spellcraft and all of the things that go into becoming a witch, right? They go through this period of like being like really focused on colors and herbs and crystals and how to draw a circle and what this phase of the moon is and all these different things. And then they'll go from that and they evolve into starting to be more curious about folklore and how that lore plays into understanding the connection to the moon, the connection to nature or plants. And then they come to this like plateau, and I've seen it many times. I've experienced it a few times where we need to take it a step further, but we're not quite sure what to do. And in my lived experience, what I would recommend is that this is the moment where we can dive into the multiple depth of who we are, right? The energy of who we are, like I was talking about, understanding the symbolism of the witching hour, or recognizing the energy in a room, whether it's somewhere public or your own home. We can begin to study this energy, right? Get a journal, date it, put down the time of the day it is, and start really understanding energy and the energy around you and how your energy interacts with it. Does it pull away? Does it lean into it? Like starting to like really understand the way that your personhood interacts with the world around you. And this knowledge combined with everything you've already learned, everything about witchcraft that you've learned, really brings it to that next level. And I think that's why it's not generally found in books. Once we start learning all those basics, we need to apply them to an actual experienced practice. We need to actually practice the things we've learned and let it guide us to new avenues within the craft, new senses of awareness, and maybe even to new teachers. or perhaps we're ready to be the teacher ourselves. Whatever it is, we should always be open um, to what the universe is offering to us. And if we're not keenly aware to energy, we can easily miss the signals from universe that says, maybe try this, maybe do that. We can miss our own intuition. We can miss, say, the book that fell off the shelf at the bookstore that maybe you should read. I've had that happen lots of times. But we end up kind of get hyper-focused on things. And if we're not aware of the energy, we can miss so many things in the day. So, yeah. So energy is that insight. So working with energy, let's look at seasons, right? And daily energy shifts. So I know a lot of us are aware of like the March calendar, like that, the human created calendar on when a holiday should be, right? The marking of when one season begins and another ends. But in actuality, in energy work, in being a witch, we begin to realize that those calendar dates aren't exactly precise. They might be precise in certain ways, say like Stonehenge with the alignment of the sun, give or take. I know it's been shifting ever so slightly because the earth wobbles. But if we pay attention to the actual energy work that those important seasons, those important like calendar dates are about, we'll realize that the actual energy happening around that holiday is happening maybe 2 weeks before or 2 weeks after the calendar date. And this energy awareness is gentle. There's slight shifts to the veil, to the cosmos, to the mood of nature, to the mood of your animals. If you have animal friends with you, that like cats, dogs, etc. It also takes effect on yourself and people around you, and it's usually really subtle. Sometimes we ignore the energy, and it shows up with like headaches and sinus ickies, or we end up sleeping more because the energy around us can be kind of draining or exhausting. Or on the flip side, we can suddenly have a lot of energy and don't need a lot of sleep. All of those things sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes play into what is happening magically with energy around the seasons. I think a really good example is like Halloween, or Samhain, or whatever word it is that you use during the final harvest of the year. The energy around, let's just say Halloween. The energy for Halloween is a huge transitioning energy, right? So like many things are occurring during the space and place of this. So we've heard like the wild hunt and things. Is the energy of the trees that have died this year, the energy of the plants that have been harvested. All of that energy gets swept up and cleansed and moved. It grows into the veil and gets recycled by the earth. And with that, we also have like any animals that have died or any people that have died. Depending on your belief, of course, whatever your belief is, if this isn't your belief, that's fine, this is mine. But, so all of this energy work is happening during Halloween. It's massive work, if you think about that. And it can cause people to get kind of tired. I know at the end of September, I start feeling like I need to sleep more, and I sleep deeper and I sleep longer. And I know my partner's like that too. She tends to sleep a lot more, especially when we get closer to Halloween. When I start noticing that I'm wanting to sleep heavier, longer, I'm recognizing in my own self that this is a perfect time to start doing any kind of dream magic, any kind of spirit travel magics, any of those kind of things, any kind of divination that is going to be playing in with my intuition. The energy that I'm weaving at that time is very precise to cleansing things, to moving things out, to getting rid of things, connecting with any like residual energies that are in your home and help cleanse them, working with any kind of spirit dream work is really important right now, which is why there's such a known connection of ancestor work and spirit work during Halloween. So like right now, it's February at the time of recording this, and I'm in the northern hemisphere. At this time of the year, I tend to be very introverted. I like to read. I like to do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of candle work. I don't burn as many herbs or any of that kind of magic that I'm going to want to do outdoors. Right now is just, it's very self-reflective in reading. I kind of get my cue from that for what's happening in the world around me with the snow, which is kind of like a blanket, and all the trees and everything go into slumber. As we go into spring, I'm going to take that cue of waking up, starting to get outside, starting to clear away the earth and prepare it for any seeds that I'm seeking to sow. And in that, like that transition from winter into spring. And what I kind of want to suggest to people, like if you get outdoors or whatnot, or if you don't, like if you wanted to use this as maybe a motivation, is to start to realize what it feels like for trees to wake up. A few weeks ago, I had done a video of talking about how it's easier to connect with nature spirits during wintertime because the trees have gone to sleep. As we go into spring, we can sense the trees waking up. We can smell the soil beginning to like thaw. At least I can up here. I don't think I ever experienced that. No, I never experienced that when I was in California or Louisiana. I did though when I was in Delaware. I did when I was in Illinois. So it really depends on where you are. But the best way to do this is to find like the first trees that blossom. If you know where those trees are, like start going to them like right now when you know things are still asleep, and like maybe twice a month or weekly, whatever it is that you can fit in there. Go to those trees and like spend a few minutes there. Spend like 5-10 minutes and like smell the air. Like don't go up and like sniff the tree. We don't need to be weird things, boundaries. But if we just like walk up and like meditate for a few minutes, smell the air, feel the air, feel what the sun feels like. What do the clouds feel like? All of that is an energy, right? All of that is what witches talk about when they're writing or they're sharing the energy of a space. The first tree to blossom is going to be the first to wake. And isn't it kind of a cool idea to be like, hi, when it does wake up? But this it's the perfect way to understand like nature. And we can do this like we can go into like a forest preserve, we can go into a city park, we can go into our backyard or a neighbor's backyard, I don't know, or a friend's backyard, whatever. But the point is to like sense the change of energy, the change of that space and how it feels from winter transitioning into spring, and welcoming all the senses that are available to you. And add that into like a dated journal, the time of the day it was, what day it was, so that you can then go back and look at the experience of it and start like a memory connection to what that energy feels like throughout the year. It's a really fun way to like dive into your magic in a deeper way with that energy connection. Sometimes it can get really heavy, always being like aware of our own energy and all this. And so going out into the woods and sensing nature is fun if you're into that kind of thing. So like anything in witchcraft, the more that we practice it, the more it becomes second nature. The more that we learn and the more that we grow into and the more things that become our second nature, the deeper enrichment our witchcraft has. And it gives to our experiences so that we can become just much more fluid with our witchcraft. We begin to understand like what works for us and what doesn't, and we can just flow with it. It's kind of like anything. If you're a dancer, a singer, a painter, the more we do it, the better we become with it, and the more we fall in love with it. So I invite you to like sense your energies, to connect with the space and place around you, your home, your office, the diner that you love to go to, or the park that you love to go to. Like, start feeling what it feels like there and giving that language. It's going to be your own vocabulary because we're all going to experience it very uniquely, one person is going to notice different things. And so if you go there with someone else even, and share what it is that you've experienced, you're going to recognize like your differences, which are beautiful, right? Because we're all in our own place and we're all ready to receive what is before us in different ways. That is such a gorgeous way of understanding the world around us. It's also interesting to think about is when we start to understand this energy, we realize that we're never alone, right? So we begin to understand boundaries in a deeper way, my energy versus something else's energy. And we can see the way that other things affect our energy and our energy affects them. We can start to ask ourselves, like, what exactly is the energy available for us to use to weave, right? What transformative energy is available that's just left behind that we can neutralize and redirect and weave into our own magic? And how can we do this while also respecting the energy boundaries of nature, animals, and people around us? So, yeah, so just some energy thoughts there. It looks like this incense is about to burn out, so I'm going to go ahead and close out this video. I think this is kind of an interesting idea that I'm going to do. Like, just burn a cone and talk until it's done and see what comes out of my little brain. It takes less stress off, and I can just now sit down and talk about witchcraft in a very rambly way, which is a very happy thing for my brain to do. So, yeah. I keep wanting to say something. I think this is at the end of the video, and so if you've made it this far, then okay. I kind of want to say something about what's going on in North America, which is actually what inspired making this video talking about energy, because the energy around us right now is interesting. And I have had to ground a lot lately and pay attention to recognizing how is it that I want to get involved. So I grew up in a family of activists. So like paying attention to what's going on in the world. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But right now, making this video, it is February 2025, and the world is becoming very interesting, especially if you are of a minority group. And so me being a witch, lesbian, and mixed race person in an area that is very red, it can be, it's interesting. I'll just say that. It's very interesting. And I don't want to bring like a heaviness of like civics to this channel. However, it could potentially affect my channel because there's a lot of laws going up to ban various things. The tariffs could prevent me from continuing to have Witch Casket. I've noticed that books are becoming less available. Like there is a whole bunch of books that I was going to buy online, and suddenly now they're not available at all. Luckily, I was able to just buy them directly from the publisher or the person themselves. But it kind of tells me to pay a little more attention to kind of things going on around me. And also me being a lesbian. There's just a lot of conversation going on, which is like a return of normalizing othering people. And when you otherize people, we're not in a very healthy community. And so I kind of been thinking about the energy with this a lot lately. And I've been thinking about what every single person in my family has always taught me to do when it is a time of difficulties, and that is to find joy even in the smallest things. To share food, to share community, to get more involved with your community, to be loud, and because we can have the difficult conversations even as we're finding joy in them, right? There's unity in talking about what we can do rather than being down on what we could lose, right? Like focusing on what the problem is and then moving forward with a goal. And that is something that is kind of a similar behavior within witchcraft, in how it is that we set our intentions and why we're weaving a spell, when and why we do it. So yeah, so I just thought I would kind of pop on at the end of this video and add that the energy in my country right now is why I had slowed down posting videos. And I had to kind of pull in and reflect and redirect and find my grounding and if I want to continue to put myself out there as a witch openly. And I think that I'm going to. I'm not going to allow fear to dictate me or to make me hide who I am. And I spent a lot of years hiding who I am, and I'm getting close to 50, and I say fuck that. So, yeah. So, okay, so I'm going to close the video now. Thanks for staying all the way to the end. If you have, I'm going to continue making videos like this, which is kind of a podcasty feel, I guess. I don't know. It is what it is. But, yeah, so as always, have a beautiful day or night wherever you are, and happy witching.